Welcome to the Be What You Want podcast. My name's Chris Hall, your host, and today we've got the honor of having Richard Poulton on. Richard is the general manager and a director of AFEX, which is a international risk management, payments, and foreign exchange company that's actually all over the world, but he's concentrating on the Asia-Pacific region. Richard and I met a few years ago at a conference, and I've been fascinated to get him on to talk about his angle on mindfulness in particular and authenticity in the workplace. So it's going to be an interesting blend of finance, mindfulness, authenticity, and all that good stuff. So today I want to tap into what it means to translate the big picture of business and bring a version of leadership to oneself and also the team that you lead. So Richard, welcome to the podcast. It really is a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. Now, Richard and I are from the UK, and I'm from Manchester originally. He's from London. He originally started off in this company, AFEX, in London 13 years ago. But you then moved to Sydney, and you've worked all your way up to the executive board level within the business. Tell me, what do you enjoy about finance?
Okay, so in actual fact, I was working on palio boats in Cyprus in Greece when I was younger, and I was 20 years old. And finance wasn't something that I really had much interest in, to be honest. And then a lot of the club promoters, we had a nightclub in Europe, and a lot of promoters said, look, we need to really look at getting a real job. What's the best way we can earn some money? And at the time, there was this huge buzz around stockbroking, and we said, look, why don't we look at potentially going into stockbroking? So I've not got a degree. It was a massive risk for me at that age. So I learned to be a stockbroker from home, and I did the exam for the FSA in the UK. And after failing twice, I finally passed, and I got a job for a company in foreign exchange. And then AFEX, where I am now, after 18 months, headhunted me to work in AFEX on a trading floor in London. So in terms of what excited me, at that point, what really excited me was I just wanted to make as much money as I could, and having the gift of the gab and being quite confident and it's salesy, finance seemed to be the one to go down, if I'm brutally honest. And now I've been in it for obviously 13, 15 years. I love the fast-paced environment of finance. I love the way that every day can be different. And on a trading floor of maybe 100 guys in our Sydney office, there's a great buzz, and you can get some interest rate news come out, or Trump could tweet something, and all of a sudden the market starts moving. And it's really exciting to make sure we're looking after our clients as best we can, and making sure that we're taking the ride of the market, but also having fun.
Yeah, right. There must be a real adrenaline kick about it when indeed those market moves happen, and you must be dealing with incredible sums of money. So I think the idea of consequence and risk, and really being in the game, it's like almost playing a sport. Like you're in the moment, and it's the adrenaline must really kick in throughout the trading day, I'd imagine.
Yeah. It's interesting. So typically, just to give you an example, we have clients doing anything from 100,000 euros a transaction up to $100 million in a transaction. So if you've got a typical client doing a $1 million transaction and the market moves 1%, that's $10,000 it could cost them in that movement. Now, that puts it into perspective. The market currently moves anything from 0.3 to 0.8% on a daily basis. When you get somebody like a Trump, or you get somebody in the UK, or something even in the US, or Federal Reserve raise interest rates, or we get some economic data that can move the market, it can move 1 or 2% in a day. That $1 million could potentially be $20,000 less in the space of one day. So it's really important that we're watching the markets and advising our clients on when they should and when they shouldn't trade.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I watched an old video of you on, I think it was Sky Business News from a few years ago, and you talked about, say, if you're an Australian business, right? The average, if I'm going to paraphrase what you said and tell me if I'm on the money, excuse the pun. The average Australian business will make a 15% profit, but if you're exporting and you have got currency risks, i.e. your customer is, paying in US dollars and that gets converted to Aussie dollars, that 15% is profit on the basis of a stable currency in your home country. But what if the market moves, and there can be volatility in both ways? Let's say there was volatility on a high day of up to, say, 5%, then all of a sudden you've got 10% profit. And it really is a very thing to manage, isn't it? So is that where things like options come in, where a client can say, look, I've got this deal going on, it's on this invoice that's only going to get paid in 3 months' time, so hey, Richard, AFEX, help me out, because I can't literally risk having that level of movement in my business?
Chris, I'm impressed. You can't come and work for me. Clearly, you know the markets. Listen to that. Yes, so that's correct. So you have the spot market, and then which is where you trade if you want to buy an invoice and pay today, tomorrow, or the day after. That's what we call spot. And then yes, there's a forward or an option market. So if you have a view the market's going to move, then I could. Most invoices work on 90-day payment terms. So I have to pay this bill in 90 days. I'm confident the rates is going to be worse in 90 days time. I want to lock in a rate now. That means I give myself security that in 90 days' time, I've got a forward rate locked in. Now, if that's getting too confusing, you can do an option. An option gives you the right, but not the obligation. That could be in 3 months' time, I've got the right to take this, but I might not have to because the spot market could be. So that's some of the products we offer. And obviously, like you said, it can get very exciting. And ultimately, it's about protecting your client and their risk and making sure they try and get their cover above where they're costing them.
Yeah, right. And that whole spot market thing, is there, again, help me on my terminology here because I'm learning. Is it something called factoring where is factoring where you sell an invoice? So if you've got an invoice for $1 million and you say, hey, I'm going to sell this from US dollars so I can convert it into Aussie dollars now, someone will pay me for it and they'll, someone will take a cut in the middle. So I won't get, everything that I might have gotten, but I get the cash now up front because someone's basically paying the money now for that invoice that will get paid in the future. Is that what the factoring thing is?
Yeah, there's invoice factoring, that's correct. And what you're finding now is there's a lot of peer-to-peer companies, especially the fintech space, that are coming out and doing trade finance and actually financing deals and financing other companies. And factoring is not something we do. We facilitate clients that have actually got a physical need to buy the currency for an underlying asset or invoice or payment. We're not doing a trade finance.
Gotcha. That's right. Big difference, but kind of a similar
exactly.
read almost to do it. Yeah. Okay. That's fascinating. And you got to be a bit, I'm sure you work with big companies like, whether it be the Unilevers, Procter and Gamble's of the world, or whatever the ones that are doing 100 million in a transaction. My gosh, I bet you check the, when I've transferred money from the UK to Australia for like buying a house or whatever, I'll tell you what, I checked the account number a few times. I've got a little bit of OCD there, but my gosh, I bet you've got some mechanisms to check that you get the send and two receiving parties right.
You don't want sausage fingers in this game, I'll tell you, when you're on the old keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whoops, 9 should have been an 8. Now, Richard, you seem like I've met you before, so I know that you're a very friendly guy. So you've got a warmth about you, and I'd like to kind of hear your take on what authenticity means to you at the workplace.
Okay. Authenticity really is, for me, it's about being genuine and vulnerable with people. It's probably about sharing your story in an honest and compassionate way. I think there's a lot to do about building trust with individuals, contributing to conversations, and trying to be really, to show integrity and truth. There's many different ways to be authentic, but I think if you're speaking from the heart, it can really take a conversation to a different level. And I think for me, it's really helped me as I've become a leader. Initially, I probably wasn't as authentic as I was, because when you start getting into an organization, it may be seen as a weakness to be too vulnerable. But what I've learned over the years of running an organization, running businesses, is that if you're having a discussion with somebody and you do take it to that next step and you open up to them, or you talk about an experience where you can be authentic, and naturally they follow you to that level, and you have much more deep and meaningful connections. And I think that some of the work I've been working on the last 3 years has been about how do I create deep and meaningful connections with people, and being authentic has taken me to that next level.
Yeah, beautifully said. Being truthful and from the heart. I like that, because it can be, business has the risk of just staying in the mental space, right? But we are really, I like to go deep on that kind of stuff. I believe that we are a trilogy of 3 things. We are from the heart, from the head, and also in action, right? So some leaders don't take enough action in the world and don't make enough decisions, and they just talk the talk but don't follow through. So the action's missing. Some leaders are just in the head and just about the action. It's just a mathematical game, but they lose that connection in terms of relationship with the team. But if you can balance all 3, speaking from the heart, showing and speaking your mind, and also following through, then that is, to me, that's one of the things that's what integrity actually is in leadership. Because you've got to follow through, because if you don't follow through, then you can be seen as just one of the others as well. So it's a balance, isn't it, between that trilogy of things.
Spot on. I think for me, if I'm having a one-to-one with an individual and they've done a great job for me, saying to them, oh, I love the spreadsheet, or I'm really proud of what you've done today. It's made me feel very happy, and I'm really glad you've been working with me for this long, and you're really coming on leaps and bounds. I mean, I know what one I'd rather hear, right? So you can talk about good spreadsheets, good numbers, but it's about the message you want to give to your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and one of the things I think also people might struggle on a little bit, so I want to delve into this, is the boundary between personal and professional, because I do think that maybe this is a risk for smaller businesses, because I know that I've done this before in the past with some of my smaller teams. I've also gone a little too far and perhaps been a little personal about, my personal risk and stakes in things and what's going on in my personal life. And it's okay to share that stuff. But what I've also learned on top of that is that you can still be completely authentic, like we've said, but perhaps somewhat keep it to the professional realm. So it's not about, you're not, what do you think about that? I want to hear your take on that, like this idea of sort of a healthy boundary between the professional message and content versus your true personal life.
So it's an excellent point. I mean, when I moved to Sydney 13 years ago, I brought 2 guys, there's 3 of us, and then a lot of the guys I brought over my friends from the UK. I had no friends in Sydney. My work colleagues were my friends. So I did find it quite difficult first. And you have to try and draw the boundaries. And over time I learned that. And I probably stubbed my foot along the way. I'm not going to lie. There's probably sometimes I probably could have done a better job, and I was probably too open with them, and I would have gone back in my shell for a while. And I think it's a balancing act where you find that right level where you feel comfortable. Whereas now I find that it depends on the context of what you're talking about. And also, you can still be vulnerable and give a very strong message. And I have some very tough discussions with staff, and I have in the past, where I've delivered a tough message. It's how it's delivered. It's talking about experiences where you've been in the same way, or sharing a story where I've been in some similar situation, and how I've shown them compassion in the problems they have, how I can help them. And they can still leave, and they've been put on performance management, but they can feel they're still empowered to do their job. Yes. But it's a skill I think you learn on the job, and it takes time.
It does. It's an art, isn't it? It really is an art. You can read about it, you can hear about it, you can take it in initially scientifically, but the practice of it is very much where the art lies. And yeah, that's really interesting. And the vulnerability piece, again, being vulnerable does not mean weak, and being vulnerable does not mean opening up personal life necessarily. It could be something as simple, and this is what I've also, I agree completely, that your team sort of they want to say whether from Chris or from Richard, you know what, guys, I'm really worried about whether we're going to keep this client right now, because I'm not sure what's happening here, or I'm vulnerable in the sense that I'm worried about what the next quarter's profits are going to be, because, hey, I want us to get these bonuses for the team, but I'm not sure whether this is going to happen right now. So I'm actually feeling a bit anxious. That could be an example of that, of speaking from the heart, but also being vulnerable, because it's not, you're not coming across as the stressed boss that's trying to crack the whip. You're kind of going, you know what, this is me. This is what's going on for me, but I want to come together on this as a team.
Exactly right. I find that when I have our morning meetings, and we talk about the day before, the trades that went through, and if someone has a good deal, we applaud the guy with a good deal, we give them an applause, say excellent job. I always watch, and they always look at me, or they look at their management, and that's when I know they've got a good leader, they've not got a boss, because they're proud that their manager's looking at them and they're proud of them. They're not doing it because they're working under fear. They're doing it because they feel part of something big, and they're part of an organization that's all driving to the same goal. That's really important. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the things that we've worked together on previously was this idea of your strengths, and it's a Gallup methodology. And I'll just mention it briefly in terms of like the different types of personalities you can have in your team, because one of my best experiences of working with an operations manager that I had is that I knew she had high responsibility. So that type of person, I was able to bring out the pride from her in her work by knowing that she took such ownership of the task that she had, that I would give her all the space and set things very clear so that she could shine. And again, that's what I think, to kind of drop something in there, I've heard the statistic that your experience at work is 70% driven by your manager or your leader. Like, I don't even like using the word manager really, because, there's the distinction between management versus leadership, but the person that is your, above you, it's 70% determined by them in terms of your engagement levels.
It's insane.
Anyway, well, there we go. Well, that's good. We'll go nice and deep and meaningful. One of the things that I know you did recently is you spoke at the UN Sustainable Development Goals and World Inner Peace celebration.
Yeah.
And it's on meditation and mindfulness. Now, I want to hear about what the message was at that talk itself, but I'd like actually to wind back to a more of an origin story. You know, if you spoke about meditation and mindfulness, can I ask what got you into this?
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. So typically there's a bit of a stigma around meditation, and it's getting more open in today's corporate world, I believe, and people are kind of more open to thinking about meditation. But for me, I'm working in finance. I've been doing it for many years. It's high pace. It can be quite stressful. We've got big targets. I've still got a boss in the US. We've still got shareholders. We still have to make the business profitable. We've got targets. And I was just working and building a business. And then what I found was after about 3 years ago, I got shingles. And I was, shingles, this is weird. I'm like 36. I thought shingles was something that a lot of older, more senior people got, not something someone in the 30s. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, dude, you just got to slow down. And I'm like, well, I don't really feel that stressed. I don't feel stressed. He said, well, you are stressed. He said, you're getting migraines, you're getting shingles. Shingles, it just clearly shows you're living in your nervous system. You're getting this because you're run down. You're working at 100 miles an hour. You're literally consistently living in your beta brain, right? So I was like, okay, this all sounds very, very alien to me. So from there, I was like, right, okay, I need to consider what I need to do. This could be a problem. So I engaged an executive coach about 3 years ago. A company from a guy called Derek from Collective Mind, and we spent a lot of time together. And the work I did with Derek was he does this like online test, and he asks you all these questions, and after it gives you an assessment of where you're at. And he said, Richard, you could do your job with your eyes closed. Your external motivation is perfect. You know what you're doing. That stuff's easy for you, but you're really lacking this intrinsic stuff. Just from the way you answer the questions, I can see you're lacking your intrinsic value. You're looking after yourself, and you're in a peace. And I was like, okay, well, what can we do? Thinking of these really cool tools, and meditation was one of them tools. He said, Rich, meditate every single day. And I'm like, really? He said, do it every day, and just do it for 20 minutes a day. Anyway, this was 3 years ago. I now meditate for an hour a day. And if you'd have said that to me 3 years ago, I'd have laughed and felt to see. I couldn't even sit still for 5 minutes 3 years ago. But what I found was by doing it every single day, for me, the reason with the work I did is we have 65,000 thoughts per day, of which 95% we had yesterday. It's the same things going on and on and on and on. I realized I was spending so much time worrying about the same things, whether it's in the future, whether it's in the past. I was really very rarely in the present. And the reason was I was stuck in the past. And through the work of my executive coach, also he introduced me to a great guy called Joe Dispenza, who's got some phenomenal books that I've read. And I've done some courses with Joe Dispenza's work as well. It really made me realize that I was consistently living in this beta brain. So you have beta, alpha, beta, delta, and we're consistently in this analytical brain. This is where we're trying to do 100 things at once. And it's not a healthy place to be. It's not a place to heal. And it's where I was living. I was living in my nervous system, getting migraines, getting sick. And it wasn't until I started meditating and started to actually find peace and then actually say, oh, hang on a minute, this is what it's like to have no thoughts for even 2 minutes. And it's just calmness. And then from there, I started to become the consciousness behind the thought. And that's the secret. If you can become the consciousness behind the thought, then the thought won't take you on this wild goose chase of a 5-minute story. One quick example, I'll be on a flight to Sydney, and 3 years ago, I had a thought about the plane going down, and then all of a sudden, I'm worried about who's going to look after my wife, the kids, the life insurance, what's going to happen about the plane, are they going to find my body? What if I've changed seat? Are they going to know I'm in the same seat when they find the body in the plane, right? With meditation, I catch it before it happens. So the plane's going to go down. That's not, because I've learned to become aware of the thought. Whereas before, I would never be able to stop that. So sorry to waffle a bit, but that gives you an idea of how it's helped me.
Oh, I love it. No. This is exactly what I'm into. This is my philosophy. And yeah, our higher self is the observer of our life, i.e. our thoughts, even our emotions as well, right? I'm into this. I love it all. Like I even practice this with my wife, for example. I can observe that I'm having a feeling right now. And I can observe that I can admit to myself, I'm feeling reactive. Oh, what's that for me? Oh, that's interesting. And so you observe the thought, you observe the reactivity, you observe the emotion, and then instantly, and it can happen like within a split second, but you are powerful in the moment because you were the observer. And then you can choose to then focus on something else or reset into a different response rather than a reaction, and or just let it go. And because actually, if you just become present, indeed, you let it go. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because when I started yoga, on a similar vein, when I started yoga, should we say 5-6 years ago, I recognized that I had this monkey mind, and I still do, right? We all do. And the beta mind maybe. And it's all going on, tick, 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 tick. Yoga for me, and I think meditation is the same idea, the physical experience of going into breath is the very thing that brings union between the mind and thoughts, and that actually slows the thought process down. So my throw in there is that basically it's a physical experience, isn't it, to go through that in order to slow the mind down, whether it be meditation, yoga, or even going for a run. It's a physical
Exactly right.
experience.
It's that one point of focus. So meditation is one thought. It could be going for a run. Some people in the shower, they go, I can just think so much better in the shower. That's because their brain's moving from beta to alpha. The brain was just slowing down. They're freeing up the noise. Some people get it while they're ironing. Some people go to the gym. Some people box. Meditation is just a tool. And I think in the finance world, in the corporate space, with lots of traveling, meditation was the one that I really found really worked with me. So yeah, and I think going back to your point around emotions, it's spot on. Thought, your brain doesn't know the difference between a thought and what reality is. That's the interesting thing. So you have a thought, you have a chemical reaction, and you have a physical reaction in your body. So if you're stressed, you'll get sweaty palms, you'll feel anxious, you'll get shortness of breath, and your body's in fight or flight. And I was living in that. And it wasn't until I got shingles, then I realized, wow, I need to just learn to be in a place of wellness. I need to be the other side. If there's this side of the spectrum where we're consistently under stress, there has to be the other side where we can heal. And that was what I found through the work I did with my coach. And
I love it.
Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
I'm not a monk now. Please don't get me wrong. I still have, when I meditate for an hour, I still have 30 minutes of noise some days. It's not like I'm in nirvana. But I'm getting, it's obviously helping what I'm doing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that thing you're describing about the mind causing a physiological reaction, Joe Dispenza, love him. Dr. Joe Dispenza, for people who want to check it out. I'm into him too. And he talks about the mind-body connection. And so the idea is that actually it's a symbiosis between the two, isn't it? Mind causes body physiological reaction, but then the physiological reaction itself, that feeling of sweaty palms or nervousness, that can cause you to then kick into an anxious thought process or whatever thought process in your mind. And then they just self-reinforce basically. So again, meditation or whatever your practice is personally to snap yourself out of that basically sets your day up right. So out of interest, when do you meditate? Is this at the beginning of the day or throughout the day?
So I meditate I do 30 minutes in the morning when I wake up. I normally get up about 6 a.m. I do 30 minutes of a gentleman called Venerable Barin. He's my teaching monk. Yes, I've got a teaching monk. So please don't tell anybody that I grew up with or my mates in the pub. But I actually met him in Bangkok about 18 months ago. He's the guy that got me involved at the UN, the Sustainable Development Goals. So that was a nice segue into that. So he's a phenomenal guy. He's done some great work. And he taught me what's called the middle way meditation. Now, this is the original meditation that the Buddha found under the tree. This is what he found, and it's focusing on your middle point. So I do that for half an hour. Pretty awesome. And then I was doing it. He said to me, do it every day for half an hour. Every day for half an hour. So to be honest, the work with my coach was good, but it wasn't very spiritual. It was never very spiritual. I've always been very agnostic. I've always believed I can't be an atheist because you can't prove there's not a God. So I think I'm the closest to atheist there could be, so agnostic. However, when Venerable Barin taught me the middle way meditation, he said, do it every day for half an hour and just see what happens. Anyway, I was doing it every day, 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, every day, half an hour, I'm at this meditation center in Singapore. I'm sitting there, there's about 60 people there. I'm the only one that's not Chinese or Thai. I'm sitting there, just thought I'll give it a go. And we're all there, and we close our eyes, we do the middle way meditation. And I close my eyes, and they dim the lights down in the room, so it's quite dark, obviously, because everyone's got their eyes closed. I'm doing it, and I'm doing the usual, and the noise is coming, distraction, I've got to do this, I've got to send that email, all the same distractions you normally get. And all of a sudden, I felt this, like a pebble dropping in an ocean in my stomach, this amazing vibration. And then somebody turned the lights on in the meditation meditation hall. So it went completely bright white, and someone turned the lights on. And I was like, why would they do that? And then I stayed there, opened my eyes, and no one had touched the lights.
Oh.
I know, right? This is a bit deep, but I was like, oh my God. This was probably the most amazing experience I've ever had. Something that's not very spiritual, that's very much science-backed. Read a lot of Richard Dawkins, read a lot of the God Delusion, his sort of work. So now I have this experience. So that was probably around seven months ago, and now I've taken it to the next level. So it's been pretty amazing.
Oh, I love it. 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 I really do. Yeah. Okay. So whilst I'm not a spiritual teacher, my understanding of what happened there is that that's a crown chakra experience where you get something kind of dropping in. I've heard about it before. I've actually experienced that myself. So the idea of when you kind of literally aligning and cleaning out your different chakras, you get a kind of a direct line of communication to your crown, which is here. And then the idea is that literally things can drop in and then you get this physical sensation. So I had a spiritual coach, actually, a spiritual business coach, Anjani, Amrita Anjani, and I've had her on the podcast previously. Wonderful lady. And, she got me into this kind of wonderful synthesis point between personal development, genuine business coaching, and spiritual stuff. And she just kind of sorted me out, and it's the most incredible experience. And the reason I mentioned that story is that I completely relate. I had one of my first deep spiritual experiences where I went to this thing called a satsang, and it's like it's like going to a meditation center, right? And I had my first blessing, and I thought I was brought up a Catholic in Manchester in the UK, so whilst I wouldn't consider myself religious now, it's this idea of being open to the idea of spirituality. And all I can say is that in a similar way, literally, as soon as this person touched my head like that, third eye area, and gave me a blessing, it's like boom. Like it was a physical experience of spirituality. And I know, actually, I won't say the word think because it's not a thinking process. I know I had a spiritual experience because the knowing comes through an experience. It can't be thought of.
Agreed. And I think it's similar, right? And I was a little bit taken aback by it. And obviously, being a GM or a managing director of a very large financial services business globally, and I run Asia, but it's still quite a big company. There is a stigma around it. So not so much the spirituality piece, but there's a stigma around meditation and mindfulness, and it can be hit with a woo-woo stick a few times, especially when you're dealing with 100 brokers from 20 to 25 years old that like to work hard, play hard, right? But I think one of my challenges and what I've really implemented in my business is I speak to my guys about that, about just even going for a walk, about mindfulness, about trying to get away from the phones every now and again. But like you said, it could be the gym, it could be anything. It's wellness. Wellness covers the whole spectrum of it. So the speech I did at the UN, sorry, going back to that, for the World Inner Peace Day, was 3 million Australians currently struggle with depression. 6 in 10 workers in major global economies are experiencing increased workplace anxiety. We're spending more time at work, more time on our phones, more time on social media, more time feeling stressed, more time being busy, which is really just a code for people prioritizing things that count and deprioritizing things that don't. So I think the idea is that it's a problem. We need to spend time on ourselves. And one of the big things that I learned through my coach is that I think if you can find inner peace and work on yourself first, that can create external peace in your environment. And the big thing that they were doing at the event was world peace through inner peace. And I think that's lovely. I think we've got a long way to go, but I think it's a real nice thing.
Wow. Yeah, and what you just said there resonates with one of the things I teach about. I've put together a course on happiness, right? And the pillars that I teach about in there are fourfold. The idea is that in order to access happiness, we need to actually do 4 things. Self-care, and I talk about that holistically very much, including exercise and time for you and all that stuff, right? Self-care, relationships, and that taps into what we were talking about before with authenticity and being real with people. Self-care, relationships, your pursuits, what are you actually doing in your life? Is it on purpose? Is it passion? And also the perspectives, which comes from a personal development, philosophical attitude towards life, so that we're not dragged into drama and things like that. So I couldn't agree more. I think the idea of busyness in today's world is a It's a digital problem. It's addiction. I'm just going to say it straight out. It's addiction, because our physical devices, we've now got, I love my new Apple Watch that I've got. It's amazing. But, you know, it's on my wrist. It goes ding, ding, ding. And I've got my phone and I've got my emails and all this stuff. And because they're so shiny and pretty and they allow us to do things and they allow us to socialize and to work in the whole bloody spectrum, they've become addictive, just so addictive. And we actually know from a marketing point of view that they're designed to be addictive, including the way an app is designed. So no wonder we are completely in the mental space and not looking after ourselves from a self-care point of view. So yeah, because I just couldn't agree more with this stuff. You know, all of that has a lot to do with snapping yourself out of that addictive mental state and telling yourself that you're busy and I can't possibly have time to do this, and literally just physically going to do something that looks after yourself. Meditating, yoga, walk, run, doesn't matter, but physically pull yourself out and go do it and disconnect.
And it's so difficult because, I mean, you can, I mean, and you get stuck in a rut, right? Some days I'll be like, oh, I really want to meditate, but then it's become it's so part of my life now, I have to do it. I will just do it. And in the morning I'm like, Richard, it doesn't matter, you have to do it, so just do it. And that happens very rarely now, but when I first started, I'd get that. I haven't got 20 minutes, I haven't got 20 minutes. And that's the inner critique, that's the inner voice. It doesn't want you to change. And we did a lot of work on that. We did a lot of work on that inner voice work. And it's interesting, what does your inner voice say to you? So my voice 3 years ago was, you're not going to go gym, you're a waste of space. Why don't you go and get a burger at lunch? Just get a burger, you always get burgers, doesn't matter. Or don't worry about meditation, you can meditate tomorrow. Meditate tomorrow, it's fine. Actually, you know what? Why don't you start Monday? Monday's probably better because you're not going out on the weekend. Like, and it's so interesting that you have to learn, and this is why meditation helps, because the more you do it, the better you become at taking control of that inner voice.
Yes.
And then I started to say, oh, actually, no, I'm talking now. I'm taking control of my body, and that's what Joe Dispenza talks about. I'm not getting up from this seat until I've got control of you. And if that means I meditate for 10 minutes or half an hour or an hour, I'm not getting up until I've done that. And I'm a strong believer in that. You have to do it. You have to do it. You've got to break through, and it's got to become a habit.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And even that is a fundamental breakthrough for a lot of people that are just getting into this. Like, I did some courses years ago where even when the person said it on stage and said, the voice in your head is not you. They had to say it about 10 times, give 10 examples. And then you went, oh, yeah, I can see how my life's been ruled on autopilot.
Sure.
Yeah, fascinating.
I was saying something similar to that before. The guy was like, the voice in your head is not you. And the guy was like, he said, that voice is telling you now what voice? He went, yeah. He said, so there's the voice. We've all got one. So it's classic.
So Richard, tell me a little bit more about this UN speech. You know, it must have been a wonderful experience being there in front of that audience, but what were some of the core messages that you were trying to give?
Okay, so the Middle Way Institute is part of the Inner Peace. And Inner Peace is a group that really had an event on in 5 or 6 major cities around World Peace Day. They partnered with the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 goals, which have been established by the UN. Now, they cover everything from zero poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being. So good health and well-being really was what the Inner Peace education guys worked with on this. So meditation, mindfulness, how can we get good health? How can we help our well-being? And obviously that was what pointed to that Sustainable Development Goal. And I spoke a lot about meditation and mindfulness in the corporate space, in the financial space. They also cover things on in quality education, gender equality, clean water, sanitation. So those are the 17 goals that they want to that are out there for all the major countries in the UN have committed to having these developed and completed by, I think, 2030. So yeah, so it was exciting. It was interesting being there. I mean, there was some great speakers and some great people, but it was more focused on. I like that they also had somebody from a Christian background, they had someone from a Muslim background, they had somebody from a Buddhist background. It was nothing to do with religion. It was about everybody meditating as a collective group to try and create well-being and goodness to help them achieve the Sustainable Development Goals.
It's interesting. Now, one of the things we've alluded to a little bit is that we've had, I don't know whether this is a generational thing or popular cultural thing, but we can have this concern like, oh, you know, is meditation a bit woo-woo, or is it a bit out there, or will it be accepted? Well, I actually do see something changing culturally. very much from the top down as well from the bottom up. And what I mean by that is when you were mentioning the sustainable development goals, including, mental wellness, for example, I'm preparing a talk at the moment, and one of the things that I looked up was a statistic, or a quote actually from the World Health Organization. And the definition of health is not just the lack of infirmity or disease. The WHO themselves say it's about physical activity, mental wellness, and social well-being. So World Health Organization, UN, this kind of top-down stuff, people like yourself in finance, I think it's really cool to see, actually, from a very senior leadership point of view, that people are starting to talk about this and making it a policy. So that, I think we should be encouraged by that.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm a massive advocate for any sort of well-being and meditation, mindfulness, or going to the gym or anything like that in our business. So I think that, there's Billions, a TV show called Billions. So he's got a meditation room in that show. And that's the first time I really see the financial world, it's certainly in an external environment where it would be in the public domain, that somebody in that high-level financial position would be meditating. But there's I know that a lot of the large banks now have wellness programs in place. A lot of banks and a lot of large financial companies, certainly some of the fintech companies, some of the small startups as well, are trying to integrate wellness programs into the company and into their corporate governance. I think it's really important.
Nice. I'd like to jump into another subject now. There's something called the Young Presidents Organization, the YPO. It's an international organization, and what it means for people that know of it is that if you're a senior leader in business and you have to be making a certain amount of revenue, not any business can join it. You can apply to become a member of the YPO, and you have these chapters where you all kind of meet up and go on conferences and stuff. So, Richard, I believe that you're a member of the YPO. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah.
Can you tell us about that? What are you passionate about in terms of being a member of YPO and being amongst fellow directors, CEOs, leaders, all that kind of stuff?
So I got invited to it maybe 6-7 years ago now. And at first I didn't really know what it was about, but what I can say is it's absolutely phenomenal. It's completely changed my life. It's the largest global network of chief executives. It's about really creating confidential and trusting relationships. You've got unbelievable amount of personal resources there. They have tons of experiences and events that you only get really with YPO. There's also a ton of transformative personal experiences that I've been through, and I will surely go through in the future. In terms of development, from an educational perspective, it's really helped me develop my professional skills, but also my work-life balance skills. So I'm fortunate enough, I'm going to go to Harvard in January. This is the second year I'm going to Harvard.
Nice.
They do a YPO business course. It's called the President's Course. So we do it once a year for 1 week. There's 200 CEOs that spend a week at Harvard Business School. It's out of this world. They're amazing days, 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. most days, in the amphitheaters with the Harvard lecturers looking at 16 to 20 different case studies. So I got that through YPO. They do a lot of educational events. So really, it's learning for executives. There's 25,000 members globally in 130 different countries. There's 450 chapters. And I'm in the Sydney Pacific chapter, and I'm also in the Singapore chapter. And it's all I can say is once you go on the websites, look and see if your company will qualify. If it qualifies, obviously try and find out your local chapter. It's been phenomenal in terms of how it's helped me from a personal and a business perspective.
I bet it has. I mean, it's all about peer group, isn't it? Because even as a small business owner myself, I love hanging out with my friends that are fellow business owners because there's a certain relatability there. That your other mates that haven't either set something up themselves or aren't a CEO, they just don't get it, and that's absolutely fine. But leadership actually at the top can, in certain areas, be quite lonely. So having someone that gets that kind of stuff is wonderful. But the peer group also stretches one another, don't they? Because if you've got, say for example, you're talking about doing a $100 million transaction, when you're doing that kind of stuff, that's incredible. And then to bounce ideas off someone in a completely different industry but has similar revenue and whatever else, it's just a way to stretch oneself, I would imagine, in terms of always
Yeah.
being on the knife cutting edge of what the next thing is in terms of development in business.
Yeah, agreed. And there's tons of networks as well, so you can see based on industries, you can keep your eye on the markets. There's also tons of opportunity to bounce ideas off of people, because like you said, it can be quite lonely at the top. And certainly if you've got a board, you've got other guys that potentially can go to and say, hey, this is my idea, what do you think of it? You can bounce ideas off them. They're potentially from a completely different business, but they could have completely different experience. It could be a 21-year-old entrepreneur that's got an amazing e-commerce platform, up to a 50-year-old guy that runs a family business that's third generation. And to get the same people in the same network is just invaluable.
I'd imagine so. Yeah, love it. Well, I hope to be part of the YPO one day. I just need to make enough revenue first.
I recommend you. Once you get there, I recommend you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I actually really do appreciate that. Thank you. Now, tell us a little bit about your expat lifestyle. So, you're from London originally, you moved to Sydney, you've been in Singapore for the last 2 years, but you're now in charge of Asia Pacific region within AFEX. What strategies do you employ to make all the cogs of the machinery work across different geographies?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. You see, I took a deep breath then, because it's difficult when you're traveling so much. And I think that one thing I've learned, and this was just through probably many years of being a manager, not many years, I'm not like been in it for decades, but just experiences hiring people that could probably do your job, right? That was typically that's something that people would be scared of. Now I realized a long time ago that bringing people in that could do my job is I surround myself with people that could potentially do my job, that could potentially could be better than me sometimes, or maybe even are at something. And then doing that gives me comfort that in my different offices when I'm not there, I've got guys there that are doing the best they can, and they're driving the business, they're growing the business. And also not being scared of employing people around me that are more experienced than me. And it's a lot of being on a plane. There's lots of travel. I probably travel 5 to 6 months of the year. But then when I'm in town, I'm present. I think as we're on this Zoom chat now with technology, it's a lot easier to still be involved day to day. So there's lots of conference calls. There's lots of face-to-face Skypes with our management team. But also, it's really empowering my team. I don't really want them to feel that they have a boss, if that makes sense. If they're good enough in their role, they should really be able to run their business without me being there. And I think one analogy I try and use is you're either on the bus or you're under the bus, right? And what I try and say that is if you're either on your business or you're not going anywhere. And that's, are you really in the day-to-day detail, or are you high enough to really be looking and observing? If I'm in every single day-to-day decision, I'm not growing the business strategically. So I try and say, my sales guy, his focus should be the next 2 weeks to a month. His sales manager should be the month. The desk lead or the team manager needs to be the quarter. My Australian manager, his job is a 6 months. My Australian sales director, his job is a year. My job's 12 months to 2 years. If I'm focusing on a problem today, we're not going to grow. So I think it's really about empowering your management team. Obviously, you get into day-to-day stuff. It shouldn't be 99% of my day. So that's really helped us be able to grow in these different offices and different markets.
Love it. So that's true hierarchy, delegation, and getting people to step into their responsibility, team, and more team. And being willing to, that thing on the bus, I think I read a book once where it was about knowing not just what the seats are on the bus, but also putting the right people in the right seats, so that is very crucial. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Spot on. And also always having accountability as well, Chris. There has to be accountability, right? So
you can't do fluffy stuff. If someone gets it wrong, then it's great. I think having a work culture where you can call each other according to integrity, i.e., did you do it? Did we do it? Okay, we didn't. That's fine. What happened? Was that you? Was it the team? But calling each other to it, because if you sweep things under the rug, that can become toxic from within. Someone said it beautifully the other day. I was at a talk and another speaker was speaking. Oh yeah, that's right. She said, a team can defend itself from the outside world because it's like a tribe, right? They can kind of defend attacks from the outside world. But as soon as you've got something that's going wrong within the team and you don't either call it out, fix it, or do whatever you need to do, that becomes toxic, and it becomes toxic because the team can't defend from within. That's why it's important to have a really good culture of accountability.
Yeah, spot on. And I think that it's difficult because it's very easy to point fingers and point blame, but sometimes just admitting you made a mistake is the best way. And I think, like I said earlier, it's okay to stub your toe along the way. And I say you win some, you learn some. I think that's one of the things I try and say.
That's a nice. Yeah. I like that. You should patent that.
Don't steal it, Chris. I don't want to see you in a TED talk in a few weeks up on stage saying it's yours. You're not going to claim that one.
Okay, I was going to say, if you were the one to come up with that, you need to write a book. You win some.
I didn't write. No, I didn't. I stole it from someone else.
Love it. Thank you for the honesty. Now, let's kind of round this off with a couple of deep questions, right? Clearly you've got a level of self-awareness and you bring that to your team, making it a culture within the business to do authenticity, to do mindfulness, all these wonderful practices. Within your lifetime, whether it be working in finance or whatever you're going to do in the future, what kind of a world do you want to see as a result of your work and leadership?
Wow. I used to be very focused on external things like cars and houses and money, and I still like the nice things in life, but with the intrinsic work we've done recently and pushing me into that creating deep and meaningful connections with people, it's really changed my outlook on life. So I think it's about creating connections with individuals, and I've really tried that. I think typically before I was always the class clown, the joker. I was always trying to be the funny one, and now I'd rather sit there and have a discussion like we're having, where you do be authentic, you can be vulnerable, and you do open up. I think that's so much more valuable than me wasting our time talking about something that's trivial, which we spend most of our time doing. When you think about most meetings or most networking events, the first 10 minutes is how's the weather? Did you watch the game the other night? You waste a lot of time on the same rubbish. I'd rather have a deep connection with people. So anyway, so for me, I'd love that to become the way of life. I'd love that to be how people are. It's a big ask, I know. I think giving back is something I'm very focused on. And it's not just giving back money. I mean, it's giving your time. It doesn't have to be financial. It could be giving your time to somebody. It could be coaching people. I think we live in a world where everybody just tries to help everybody else around them. Unfortunately, I think that Western society, we've still got a long way to go. I think I think 95% of Western society is living in this fight or flight world where we're completely living in our nervous system. We're stressed. And the only three things that help with that are the 3 F's, which is it's fret, it's food, and it's the one that begins with F with a K at the end. And they're the only 3 things where we get relief. Where we get a release from this stress. We either eat really bad foods, it makes us feel good, we fret and we fear, or the other one. And then we're back in this terrible way of living, we're not terrible, but we're zombies. Yeah. And I'd love to be in a situation where we're not in the rat race, we're not driving, everyone's driving to make money because they want the car, they want the house, because it's a happiness trap. It's a trap. I mean, trust me, I'm not a billionaire, but I'd say I'm quite successful. And now that being successful, having money for me, the best part of having money is giving it back. And that's such a cliche, but that gives you a much better feeling than buying a car. Because when you buy the car, that feeling's gone in a week. When you buy yourself a nice pair of shoes, it's gone in a couple of days. I can look back now. I went to an orphanage recently in India and I put some kids through school, and I still think of the smile on their face, and I'm still the same kid. I've got it now. It never goes. Yep. All right. So for me, if we could just live in a massive cliche, but if we can be a world where everyone just gives and they think more about externally, the problem is before they think about externally, they've got to find it right internally. And that goes back to find peace within. And then when you find that, I think everything will be better.
That's so beautifully expressed. I mean, that all is coming under the banner of meaning, isn't it? Yeah, I love that. Find peace within, have meaning in your life, and express an outward focused form of relationship. And that really comes to what fulfillment is, because that's having a life that's worth living on a daily basis, and then that becomes part of the culture, whether it becomes part of your workplace, your family, your friends, people around you, and again, it's an attitudinal thing. And I'll throw in a guy I'm a real big fan of, Jordan Peterson, who's a Canadian psychologist, and he talks about basically the idea of the individual being the one and most meaningful unit. And what he means by that is that it's the individual that can powerfully choose to step up to improve their own life. And when doing so, that's when they change the life for themselves, but also people around them. And that's what I'm all about with Be What You Want: empower and inspire the individual so that they can find something in their life, but then immediately contribute more to the world, because that's what happens when you do it from within.
And I think that, just another closing comment, people will probably watch this or listen to it, and sometimes it's very difficult. It's very easy to say no because they feel that they're a victim and you're victimized by things that have happened, or you don't feel that you can contribute. But for me, there's 3 ways you can give. You can give your time, you can give whether it's wealth or money, or you can forgive. Forgive's a huge piece. People carry a lot of trauma. And if you can forgive, that's another way of giving. And I realized that a couple of years ago when I'm carrying a lot of bad energy. If you could just forgive, clear it, and start again. Everyone makes mistakes. And one thing I learned is people will, unfortunately, it's human nature. People will break your trust at some point. It's just what you do, what you feel, and how you move on. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think you and I could probably go on for days on this stuff. I love it.
I know. I just think,
love the connection here. Tell us what's on the horizon for the next 12 months professionally. What's exciting for you in the road ahead?
So really just growing Asia. So obviously Singapore, we've been here for nearly 2 years now. A young office. I've only got 11, 12 guys here. We're looking at expanding our licenses to offer more products in Singapore.
Cool.
Fingers crossed that comes off. Australia's still growing. I've got Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and Brisbane offices. About 120 guys now across the region. So I just want to keep growing, organic growth. We're always potentially looking at add-on strategies if we see some companies out there that are attractive. But at this stage, I'm really happy. We're building a great company. From a personal perspective, just keep on with the inner finding myself, I think, and keep on with the meditation and do some more Joe Dispenza courses or do some more meditation courses and try and take it to the next level. I love all this stuff. I love the connectedness. It's great.
I love it. It's fantastic. Wonderfully said, all of it. Now, where can people find both the company and also you online if they wanted to look you up or connect with you?
Just Richard Poulton on LinkedIn, I suppose. I'm contacted to you, so they can probably find me through you on LinkedIn, and I post a lot of articles on there about leadership. Obviously, the AFEX website, if they want to see what we're doing as a business, it's just afex.com. But I'm more than happy for people to reach out to me. I'm happy to give some people some advice or some coaching, or even if they're young entrepreneurs or people that they're stuck or they're struggling and they need some good advice around mindfulness meditation. They want to speak to somebody. I'm always open to that stuff.
Beautiful energy. I love this. This is fantastic. Richard, I have thoroughly enjoyed having a really cool conversation with you today, mate. So, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And, I hope you enjoy the Joe Dispenza course coming up in the Gold Coast in a few weeks. And, onward journeys of going deeper within oneself. So thanks so much.
I'm back in Sydney after the course, so we'll have a coffee. I'm back late October, so maybe we'll hook up for a coffee.
There you go. Let's do that. Mate, that sounds perfect. Yeah. I'd love to. Richard Poulton from AFEX, you've been a legend, mate. I'll let you go, but thanks for coming on the podcast today, and good luck with everything in the future, mate.
Thanks, Chris.